And Brandon, let's move on into now the top two teams, and we're looking at my second favorite team in college football, the Virginia Tech Hokies, and this one's easy. This is an easy starting point for the Hokies that I got for you. We're starting off talking about the quarterback. We're talking about Josh Jackson. No, not the one that plays for the Phoenix Suns, the one that is on this VT Hokie team. This is the first incumbent starter that Fuentes, Coach Justin Fuentes, will have in his tenure with the Virginia Tech Hokies. Josh Jackson, a guy who had almost 3,000 yards last year, over 59%. He was almost at 60% completion, 20 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Brandon, is Josh Jackson, I was combining Fuentes and Jackson for a second, they're going to form the great super beast in Justin Jackson, who is also an NBA player. There's two of those in the NBA now. I believe they're both on the Kings. I know the NC State or the North Carolina player is on the Kings. But my question is Josh Jackson the key to VT's success this season?
Yeah, I think he's going to be. With how he did last year, and again, that's his freshman campaign, so he's just coming in as a sophomore right now. But it's really nice for Fuentes that he's got a guy who's an incumbent, who he knows
finally
he's going to this guy. This is who he's going with, and it is a comforting fact for him. So Jackson did well this past season. Over 2,900 yards, 20 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. However, though, you have to look at from Saturday, November 4th to Friday, November 24th this past season. On the road at Miami, 28-10 loss. Then on the road at Georgia Tech, they lose 28-22. Versus Pitt, you win, but you only win 20-14. And then on the road to Virginia, you win, but you only win 10-0. And then you lose your bowl game against Oklahoma State 30-21. So those last 4 games, Josh Jackson did not play his best. In this type of when you're a good team like Virginia Tech and you're in a very competitive, certainly the top 2 teams, Virginia Tech, Miami will be competitive. Georgia Tech, as we just talked about and I talked about, I believe that they'll be competitive. The last 4 games are a lot of times games that are going to decide something at the end. They're going to decide who's the number 1 team in the Coastal. They're going to decide who's the number 2 team. They're going to decide how everything's shaken out. That's when you need to be playing your best. That's when the hope is you're hitting your stride. You've hit your stride in the middle and you are cruising. But that's where he kind of struggled. That's where he struggled last year. For the most part, pretty good season. And now I know I'm talking about a guy who was a freshman quarterback last year. It's pretty darn good for a freshman quarterback. But now you talk about a guy who, okay, he's got a year under his belt. He's coming back. He's a sophomore. He's starting again. There's no one, there's this other guy. No. It's Josh Jackson. That, to me, has me excited, gives me comfort as a fan, and makes me a strong believer in Virginia Tech as a team that could overtake Miami for the top spot in the Coastal.
No, I'm very high on Virginia Tech this year because to me, this is how I see this team. You've got an B to A at quarterback. The big question for the offense is, like most teams we've talked about, especially in this ACC, has been, they got a new quarterback. Like Jawan Pass, I'll take for example. They got a new quarterback coming in. Oh, but don't worry, he's got playmakers around him. We just said it on a pod. I don't remember which team it was this week. We just said it about a team that, they got a new quarterback coming in. Don't worry, guys, he's got a ton of playmakers around him. He'll be fine. Like, it is the opposite for Virginia Tech. It is like, nice, we got an incumbent. Wait, where's the playmakers? Where are they? We need guys for him to throw to. The other big question for me is on the defensive side. This was one of the best defenses in all of football last year. They had some big guys like Tremaine Edmonds, like Terrell Edmonds, like Tim Settle. Bye, we're going to the NFL. We're going to see what we can do over there. Now, they got a guy in Ricky Walker who people are saying he's supposed to be every bit as good as Tim Settle was. So, okay, I guess you're set there. But for me, the big question is, can people step up to fill the hole? To me, the big hole that will be filled will be void with Tremaine Edmonds not being there. I know the big thing when we were talking draft was that Tremaine Edmonds was young, but he was one of the most important players on this defense last year. Can you fill that hole this year? However, though, I look at the schedule, and if I'm a Virginia Tech fan, I am whoever made the schedule, I'm giving them a big hug and a big-ass kiss on the forehead because they did Virginia Tech all the favors. Last year, you lose to 3 teams. You lose to Clemson. Hey, we don't have to play them until the ACC title game this year. Thanks. We get to play Florida State, which I know Florida State fans are going to say that this season should be good, but week 1, with we don't know who the quarterback is going to be, if I'm playing Florida State, I want to play them week 1, not last week of the season. That should be a win for them. Every other game up until November 17th and October 25th, I think is a win for this team. Yeah, Boston College could be tough. There's a reason why they only won by 13 points last year. Could Notre Dame be tough? I guess, but I don't think so.
I think right now the jury's still out on how Notre Dame will be this year.
And I mean, we'll get to them after we get through the Power 5 conferences. But like for me, how I see this is Florida State should be a much more. I know it's at Florida State in Tallahassee, but I'd rather do that than play Clemson again anywhere. I'll save Clemson until I maybe have to play them in the ACC title game. Every other game on the schedule, I think, is winnable. The only thing is you got to take care of business against Georgia Tech. You got to take care of business against Miami. The only game that I see that could be a trap game for them is Boston College on November 3rd. Other than that, this is a team, I was going to say the last point that I'll say is the only reason I think they lost to Georgia Tech last year was because they were in such of a shock where it's like you pour your heart out against that Miami, you lose, and then you couldn't in a week get everything together to play Georgia Tech.
Saturday, November 10th.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you at?
Oh, I'm going Virginia Tech.
No, but where are you at?
Where am I at?
Where are they playing?
They're playing in Pitt.
They're on the road at Pitt. And that is just the time of the year when Pittsburgh has done literally nothing,
Pitt Panthers.
And they come out of their grave.
It was only a
to say
6-point win
F
last
you,
year.
And
I hate
they
you.
beat Virginia Tech.
Are you calling it? Are you hitting the upset special button?
No.
Okay.
But
Brandon's like, ask me that week.
I'm just saying it's like it's in Pitt's wheelhouse. To do that, to just screw over a team. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying they're going to do it. I'm saying they could do it because it's that time of the year.
It's like my Pitt Miami thing. I'll give it to you. It's like my Pitt Miami thing. Only because it's at Pitt, too. But like every other game on this schedule, like Virginia Tech to me, how I see this whole Coastal going down, and maybe a lot of people see it the same way, it's Miami and VT's division to lose. And then the winner will play Clemson in the ACC title game, unless Clemson gets like decimated by injuries and doesn't win the Atlantic for some reason, which I don't see happening. But I mean, if Josh Jackson, they might have to lean on him a little bit more than they would like because they don't have the same kind of playmakers that they had last year. But if he can be the same, if not a little bit better than he was last year, there is no reason why this team can't be undefeated this regular season or even one loss, with that one loss being to potentially the Miami Hurricanes. So,
Ricky, we already kind of talked about up front what this team lost with Tremaine Edmonds and everything there. Mm-hmm. But I think it's interesting to talk about also the secondary. They already have to replace 3 starters. And then they had another setback. They've got a potential conference guy, Adonis Alexander. He's ruled ineligible. JUCO recruit Jeremy Webb suffers an Achilles injury. How worried? And I'm asking you as someone who is a true fan of this team.
A little bit.
Don't say a little bit. You just get hard every time that we bring this team up. So I have to ask you, how worried are you in terms of where they're at right now defensively on who they have to replace and who they're not going to have this season?
I'm not worried as much as I should be. And the reason why is, like I said, Florida State might be a challenge for the secondary week 1 because people like to tell me that Willie Taggart's something special. Prove it to me. Because every time you've been at a Power 5 school, I haven't been impressed with what you've been doing. Other than that, like I look at their first few games, William and Mary, East Carolina, which I know East Carolina people are going to say, and I know well enough, they're usually a team that likes to upset the Virginia Tech Hokies in their future, but they haven't done so in the Fuentes era. That was more of a, we're going back in the time machine for the Virginia Tech history. Yeah, we're eating some soup here. Old Dominion should be a win. So like with those 3 games, I think that gives a buffer for someone to step up. For let's figure out what we got in this secondary to kind of fill some of those holes. Even Duke, that's not even a tough game. The first real tough game is potentially October 6th. Like you said, we don't know what we're going to get from Notre Dame this year. The first for sure tough game, October 25th. That is far enough time to figure out who's going to step up in that secondary.
It's crazy how
backloaded,
how friendly of a schedule Virginia Tech has. I mean, it really is. When you look at the first couple of games, I mean, you almost forget like Florida State's the first game that they play, and it's on the road at Florida State. And while I think that Florida State is going to be a much improved team, I'm really excited actually to watch them this year. I think that Virginia Tech is still very good and should get the win there. But, I mean, we talked about it, Ricky. Josh Jackson can't just do it all by himself. He can't throw the ball to himself. He's got to have some weapons. And right now he's very low on the weapon count. Whereas Florida State, they've got some good weapons over there. Let's not forget about Cam Akers. Let's not forget about either guy that they put in at quarterback. So that's where there's a little bit of a... The schedule's very friendly, but the first game doesn't start off in the... I shouldn't say in... I will say it. In the easiest of spots, especially because you don't have everyone you had last year. If you had everyone you had last year, if you're Virginia Tech, I think that Virginia Tech wins it.
2 points. First off, 9 out of 10 times, I'm going to take the team with the better quarterback, and that's VT in that game. Like, when we talked about Florida State, it was in the comment section still is calling us idiots, debating it of who's going to start. What happens if Francois starts? What happens if Blackman starts? They don't know who their starter is. VT knows Josh Jackson's our starter. Plus, another thing to play into that Florida State game is if it was like, I only have a week to prepare for this, all right, that's a tough game. VT is going to come in with a game plan because guess what? They have all offseason to prep for that first game. They know first game on the schedule is Florida State. That's the first game we're playing. It's not like, well, we're playing William and Mary, then we'll prep that next week for Florida State coming up next. It's no. We're prepping for that Labor Day game on September 3rd for Florida State. Fuentes is going to get these guys prepared knowing, hey, it's a big road game to start the year. I'm not too worried, but I'm not too worried about Florida State in general this year. I don't think they're going to be anything special. I don't think they're like a one-win bad team, but I don't think they're anything special this year for the first year under Willie Taggart. I just really think that this Virginia Tech team kind of rolls through the first half of the schedule. Then we get to the Thursday night game before Halloween. Then shit gets real. What do you do between October 26th and November 17th? That is going to decide the season for VT. I think this has, I'm going to say it this way. This team is a 1-loss, 2-loss team. They're between 0 losses and 2 losses. The 1 loss, if they do that, will be to Miami. If it's 2 losses, they either lost to Pitt or Boston College or Georgia Tech one of those other teams before Miami.
I would certainly not see this team being any worse than what they were last year. Mm-hmm. They were 9-4 overall. Mm-hmm. I don't see them being any worse than 9-4, and possibly better. I think that again, this is a team.
You threw that 9-4 at me, and I was like, 4 losses. I totally disregarded the bowl game because it didn't matter to me. That's why I was like, I thought they only lost 3 games last year, but I was only thinking regular season.
Yeah, but I look at this and I just don't see too many. Mm-hmm. That's the Notre Dame, the Georgia Tech, the Miami, and Florida State for me. Mm-hmm. Those are the ones that I put up there as, okay, these are not games where I've automatically counted them down as wins. Everyone else, it was like boom, 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 boom. And you're a little on Boston College. I think they've run right through Boston College.
I could see that. I could see Boston College being a trap game for them. That's why I'm a little on it. I mean, 7-point win last year. We talked about Boston College 2 weeks ago. I keep wanting to say last week. 2 weeks ago, A.J. Dillon, who, by the way, I don't know if you saw it on Twitter, we were featured in a little mixtape for A.J. Dillon that he tweeted out. It was made by I'm forgetting the YouTube guy, something Kim, who I
Jung-un?
also no, but his last name was Kim. Made a hype tape for A.J. Dillon, and he used our voices from that podcast at the beginning of it when we were talking about A.J. Dillon. Then I saw it that A.J. Dillon tweeted it out himself. So that was a little cool something. If you haven't seen it, you got to check it out. But that's just a game I could see being a trap game for Virginia Tech.
I could see Pitt being a trap game for him, but I do not think at all that Pitt is going to win that game. But I can see it as a trap game, but I don't think they're going to win. So, I look at this team for Virginia Tech being a very strong team. They're going to be back again this year like they were last year. If you have, like you said, if you've got a good quarterback play, a strong quarterback, a good leader, a guy who's got his head on straight and knows how to get the ball down the field to whoever it may be. Mm-hmm. That's the important thing. So I think that this offense is in good hands. The defense, you'd like to think, is going to be able to, when I say bounce back, I mean bounce back from the losses that have occurred in crucial spots from guys who left early for the NFL and who are just graduating in general. Mm-hmm. This is a good defense last year. If they're able to replace those guys, we could see this, team be good again defensively. They may see a little drop off, but this is still a really strong team.
And that BC hype video, Young Kim was the username of the guy who made it. It was a great thing. So you can go to Most Valuable Pod on Twitter and check it out. Sean retweeted it from June 17th. But this is where you guys come in. VT fans, let us know what you think down below in that comment section. What do you think about your Hokies this year? Do they win the Coastal? Do they lose to Miami? What are you thinking about this year? How do you think of those injuries on the defensive side? Let us know what you think down below in that comment section.